Hello there, little fairy tale friends, and a warm welcome to a new bedtime story here on SoundTales. My name is Fina, and now we are going to rest together. But first, let's take a couple of deep breaths. And when you breathe in, imagine that you're smelling a beautiful flower. And when you breathe out, like you're blowing out a candle. Okay, let's begin. Breathe in through your nose and feel the flower scent. Hold it and out through your mouth. Blow out that candle. Good. One more time. In. Hold and out. Good. Now, I want you to give yourself a big hug and wrap your arms around your body and squeeze yourself as tight as you can. And tense your legs too. Come on. And relax. Very good. And now that your body is ready to rest, it's time to open your ears to a story. A story about sensitivity and courage and the choice not to hide what makes you real. This is Hans Christian Andersen's tale, The Princess and the Pea. Once upon a time, there was a prince who very much wanted to marry a real princess. But how could he know if someone really was one? He traveled through storms and sunshine, dined with duchesses, danced with countesses, smiled at crowns in every color imaginable. But every time, he felt like something was missing. Some laughed too loudly at others. Some turned away from beggars in the street. And some spoke beautifully, but never listened. And the prince began to wonder. Maybe there was no such thing. Maybe true princesses only existed in fairy tales. So he returned to his castle, a little more tired than before, a little more lonely. The castle stood like a shadow against the sky when he arrived. That night, the wind howled around the towers. The rain lashed at the windows. Thunder rumbled far away. But this story isn't just about him. It's also about a young woman. A young woman who was walking alone through the rain on a cold night when the world felt hard and hollow. Her shoes were soaked through. Her hands were freezing, and in her head, a swirling tangle of thoughts. What am I even doing? No one's gonna believe me. I don't look like a princess. I don't look anything close to a princess. She no longer knew what she was, only that deep inside, something had always whispered that she mattered, that she was born for something gentle, something true. She didn't know if it was called a princess, but she knew she wasn't made to hide. So when she saw the light from the great castle in the distance, she raised her hand and knocked. Knock, knock, knock. The servant opened the door, and his eyes widened. There stood the young woman. She was soaking wet. Her hair clung to her cheeks like string. Her shoes were muddy, her dress dripping with rainwater. But she carried herself with a certain stillness, as if she had been listening to the song of the rain and followed it all the way there. I'm looking for shelter tonight. I've lost my way and I'm a princess," she said. She didn't say it like someone who was bragging. She said it like someone who wasn't quite sure herself, but still hoped it could be true. And maybe that was the bravest thing she had ever done. Maybe she had been called a princess as a child. Maybe she carried something inside her, something noble, even if no crown had ever rested on her head. The servant called for the queen, and she immediately welcomed her inside. She gave her a warm bowl of broth and dry clothes, but while the young woman sat by the fire warming her feet, the queen went quietly upstairs to the guest room. She removed all the sheets and blankets and mattresses, placed a single green pea at the very bottom of the bed, and on top of it, 20 mattresses, and on top of those, 20 fluffy duvets, soft as clouds. Then she asked the young woman to go to sleep, and she did. Well, she went to bed. But she laid awake for a long time. The bed was big, the room was quiet, but something was off. She tossed and turned, stretched her legs, and flipped her pillow. Why am I so uncomfortable? I guess I don't belong here. Maybe I'm not a princess at all. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. But sensitivity was the one thing she'd never managed to grow out of. She had always been able to feel when someone in the room was sad, even if no one said anything. She could tell when someone's words rang true, or when something felt off-key. She was moved by shadows in the forest, by wind through the leaves, by very old trees, or by an honest look. She could tell when someone was holding up a facade, when their energy didn't match their words. And maybe that wasn't something she needed to get rid of. Maybe it was something to keep, to trust. The next morning, she sat quietly at the breakfast table. She yawned softly. "Did you sleep well?" the queen asked. She shrugged a little. "In all honesty, Your Highness, I hardly slept at all. It felt like something was chafing me, like I was lying on a stone or something. I tossed and turned all night. I'm all black and blue and bruised up. I apologize. I don't mean to sound ungrateful. It's probably a lovely bed. I guess I'm just too sensitive, Your Highness." The queen smiled. And the prince? He looked at the girl, and it felt like his heart was finally speaking to him. Yes, there she is. Not because she looked like a princess, but because she felt like one. And yes, they got married, of course, but that's just a detail. What mattered most was this. She now knew that being sensitive wasn't something wrong. It was something very right. It was a gift, a sign, an inner light. She was someone who felt things deeply, someone who noticed when something was wrong, even when everyone else kept sleeping. Someone who didn't harden, who didn't shut down. And the pea? It was saved in a glass jar in the castle with a tiny label that read, "Sensitivity is not a weakness. It's a gift." The end. And that's where the story of the princess and the pea ends. One little pea, 20 mattresses and 20 fluffy duvets, and a young woman who was so sensitive she could sense the P through it all. Someone who finally knew that what she felt truly mattered. Maybe you feel a lot too, sometimes. Like the world is a little too loud, a little too sharp, a little too much. But you know what? Feeling deeply means that your heart is awake. And that is anything but wrong. That is a gift. A superpower that makes you see things that others miss. Thank you for listening to my bedtime story today, little fairy tale friends. And always remember that what you feel is true. And you are just right, exactly as you are. And we will meet again soon, here on SoundTales. Sleep tight.